Everyone at the funeral whispered about closure. But no one told me that grief sometimes speaks in threats. They were closing the casket when I felt her breath on my shoulder, soft as a prayer but colder than anything God would allow. "You have a week to get out." That's what she whispered. My fingers clenched around the funeral program in my lap. I didn't look at her. I didn't breathe. I just stared ahead like her words hadn't reached me, while the priest kept talking about eternal rest and peace. But peace doesn't come in whispers. Not like that. Aaron, my son, my only child, was gone. 33 years old. A heart attack, they said. No warning. Just gone. And beside me, in a dress that cost more than our first apartment, sat Madison, his wife. Still young. Still polished. Still dry-eyed. And already planning my eviction. She squeezed my shoulder like she was offering comfort, but her grip was too rehearsed. Too careful. Then she stood up and greeted someone with a bright smile. "She's been so strong," someone murmured behind me. "Losing a husband at her age, I can't imagine." I wanted to laugh, but my chest just burned. I stayed quiet through the service. Through the final hymn. Through the way people looked past me like I was furniture in a forgotten corner. When it was over, Madison made a grand show of helping her grandmother to the car. Left me standing by the chapel door like an afterthought. I rode with her in Aaron's car. She didn't say a word. The leather still held his cologne. It clung to the air like a memory that wouldn't wash out. And still she said nothing. At the house, Madison welcomed everyone inside like she'd been preparing for this for weeks. She gave a small speech about Aaron's sense of humor. About family. About strength. I stood behind the kitchen island and watched her. She passed out glasses of wine and offered hugs like a grieving widow on television. But I noticed the missing things. The photo of Aaron and me by the stairs gone. His old army case removed. Even the keychain on the hallway hook had changed. She wasn't grieving. She was erasing. After the last guest left, I went to my room. Except, it didn't feel like my room anymore. I'd lived there for 7 years. Paid into the down payment after Aaron lost his job. Cooked dinners. Folded laundry. Picked out curtains. This wasn't a guest room. This was mine. But the blankets were folded military tight. The nightstand lamp was unplugged. Half my dresser drawers were empty. My jewelry box gone. The closet? Boxes labeled Mom's stuff. I stood there for a long minute, like my mind needed time to catch up to what my eyes already knew. She'd moved me out. I walked down the hallway, past the kitchen. Madison was sitting at the table with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. I cleared my throat. "Did you move my things?" She looked up like I'd asked what time it was. "I was just organizing," she said. "There's a moving company I can call whenever you're ready." She smiled. Polite, like offering a cup of sugar. I asked where my jewelry was. "In the safe," she said. "You wouldn't want anything to go missing with all the people coming in and out. I never asked you to touch my things." She sipped her wine. "Aaron and I talked about this. We assumed you'd want to move back to your sister's." I stared at her. "I don't have a sister." She didn't flinch. "This is my home," I said. She shrugged. It was his. Then picked up her phone again like I wasn't there. I went back to my room. The box I kept under the bed, gone. I opened the closet. Dug through a bin marked old docs. Receipts. Warranties. Then there it was. My folder with old bank statements and my passport. But the deed wasn't there. The one with my name. The one Aaron made sure to include back when we bought the house together. The one that proved I belonged. Gone. "Do you want leftover salad?" she called from the kitchen. "Or should I toss it?" I didn't answer. My hand was shaking. The next morning, the house was too quiet. No coffee smell. No clinking mugs. Just silence wrapped in something sharp. Madison was already at the dining table, typing away like it was a normal Tuesday. "Morning," she said. "Just checking mover quotes." I opened the fridge. My labeled containers were gone. Replaced with hers, neat, uniform, unfamiliar. "I didn't ask for movers," I said. She smiled. "Right. But you said you wanted to move on your timeline. I figured I'd help." She clicked her mouse. Fast. Precise. Efficient. I walked to the living room. Aaron's old recliner gone. Replaced with something glossy and hollow. His blanket? Stuffed behind the TV like a chew toy. "Where's his recliner?" I asked. It didn't fit the room. "It's been a week." She sighed. "It's been 9 days. I'm not going to sit in a dead man's chair, Ellen." That was the first time she'd said his name. Like it meant nothing. I walked outside. I needed air. I needed something. On the porch, I called a lawyer. Aaron's old contact, the one we used when updating our wills. His secretary remembered me. He can see you this afternoon. I didn't tell Madison. I just left. Mr. Holt remembered Aaron immediately. Solid guy, he said. I'm sorry. I told him what happened. The missing deed. The boxes. The threat. How long have you lived there? He asked. 7 years. And the down payment? I paid with a cashier's check. You still have it? Yes. His face lit up. Then we may have something. He explained it carefully. If my name was on the original deed, and I had proof of financial contribution, she couldn't evict me. Not legally. Find that check, he said. And if you can, the original purchase docs. I nodded, then drove home with my hands locked on the wheel like I was holding something together. When I walked in, Madison was on the phone, pacing by the hallway. No, she doesn't know anything, she whispered. It's handled. She froze when she saw me, then turned away like she hadn't just revealed the game. I went to the attic. Aaron had kept boxes up there. Pre-Madison boxes. Things she'd never touched. I climbed the ladder and opened the first one. Dust. Folders. Tax returns. Then I found it, home purchase. My hands trembled. Closing statements. Insurance forms. Loan approvals. And then there. A manila envelope marked final deed. I opened it. My name. My signature. Aaron's. Dated. Notarized. Filed. I sat on the attic floor for a moment and let that truth settle in. Madison was bluffing. Either she didn't know, or she was counting on me forgetting. I tucked the envelope into my coat and climbed down. She was standing at the bottom of the ladder. Looking for something? She asked. Just some old paperwork. Nothing important? Not really. She smiled tightly. That's good. Wouldn't want you getting stressed. Then walked away. But something had changed. She thought she had control. She didn't know I'd just taken it back. That night I didn't sleep. I just laid there in my quiet room, the one she'd tried to sterilize, and stared at the ceiling. The deed was mine. The house legally was half mine. But something darker was happening. This wasn't about grief anymore. It was about erasure. Around 9 p.m., Madison knocked on my door with 2 glasses of wine. I figured we should talk, she said. Clear the air. I took the glass but didn't drink. She sat on the couch across from me, poised like she was practicing for a performance. Aaron always said this house was for us, she began. For our future family. I said nothing. She stared into her glass, like she'd find a better lie at the bottom. I don't want this to get ugly, she continued. I just want to move forward. Her hand rested on her left ring finger, still wearing Aaron's wedding band like it gave her permission to rewrite everything. You understand, right? She asked. Have you spoken to a lawyer? I asked back. Her face twitched just for a second. No. I didn't think it was necessary. I smiled. Maybe it is. She looked at me like she'd bitten into something bitter. Are you threatening me, Ellen? I smiled again. No. Just thinking out loud. She stood up slowly. I hope we can do this the easy way. So do I. And then she walked down the hall, her wine glass still full, her steps too calm. I waited until she was out of sight before pulling out my phone and checking the scan of the deed one more time. My name. Clear as sunrise. The next morning, I printed 2 copies and sealed them in an envelope marked for Mr. Holt only. I dropped it off at his office without a word. Just handed it to the assistant and left. Back at home, Madison was in the garage, clearing shelves. Just getting rid of junk, she said too cheerfully. Aaron's fishing gear was gone. I walked to my room. Opened my nightstand drawer. Locked. It had never been locked. I got a flathead screwdriver and pried it open. My prescription bottle was gone. So was my emergency cash envelope. She was sending a message. No words. Just actions. No privacy. I sat on the bed and breathed through clenched teeth. I opened Aaron's filing cabinet in the office. 3rd drawer down. Refinance options. Inside, fresh mortgage statements. Both our names. Less than a year old. No mention of Madison. I took a photo. Uploaded it to the cloud. Evidence. Then I heard her voice in the hallway, on speakerphone. Yeah, she's still here. No, her name's not on the utility bills or taxes. It'll be fine. I made just enough noise for her to know I'd heard. She turned fast, eyes wide. Everything okay? She asked. You should be careful what you say in this house, I said. The walls are thin. Then I walked to the kitchen and started making coffee. Like nothing had happened. That night, I noticed she had swapped the family portrait with a cheap landscape print. Mountains. Snow. No people. I stared at it for a long time. She was scrubbing out every trace of him. Of me. Of us. Later, she ordered Chinese food. Left mine in the bag on the counter. No note. No courtesy. I took the food, locked my door from the inside, and wedged it shut. At 2 a.m., I heard footsteps outside. Slow. No knock. Just a pause. Then retreating steps. The next morning, my alarm clock was blinking. Power outage, exactly 1 minute. I checked the breaker box. Nothing tripped. I said nothing. Just watched her pour coffee like she hadn't been pacing in the dark. Then I went back to Mr. Holt. I sat across from him and laid out the new evidence. Photos, mortgage documents, refinance records. He scanned each one, nodding. She has no legal standing, he said. She's not on the title, not on the loan, and you've been there financially and physically for 7 years. If she tries to evict you, she'll lose. Can I file preemptively? I asked. Yes. We'll prepare a legal notice of co-ownership and respond to any false claims. Keep your documentation safe. Don't let her bait you. When I returned home, Madison was folding laundry on the couch. Did you go somewhere? She asked. Just needed fresh air, I replied. She eyed me. You seem confident all of a sudden. I just remembered something important. She tilted her head. Well, I hope it doesn't make things harder. In the fridge, my labeled food was back. Same handwriting. Same attempt at illusion. That night, I heard her in the guest room on the phone again. She's acting weird. I might need to move up the timeline. If she finds that file, we're screwed. She didn't know I already had it. She didn't know it was in 3 places. 3 different forms. The next night, she announced a grief gathering. A casual wine and hugs mixer for Aaron's friends. Just a little closure, she said, stirring almond milk into her coffee like she wasn't planning a photo op. She didn't ask for help. Didn't want any. I kept to myself. But I watched. I watched her wheel out Aaron's old bar cart, line the counters with imported crackers and mini quiches. Like it was a party, not a funeral house. The first guest arrived just after 6, Kyle, Aaron's old co-worker. He hugged me tight. Said you were the one person he could always count on, he whispered. I nodded, trying not to cry. Then others came, neighbors, office friends, people I didn't know. Madison floated through the house like a hostess on television. To Aaron, she toasted, her glass high. A man of heart, of humor, of strength. She smiled as she said it. But I remembered the boxes in the attic, the deed she tried to erase, the recliner she tossed out like trash. Someone asked me how I was holding up. As well as I can, I said. Considering I still live here. She blinked. Oh, I thought Madison said the house was hers. I smiled. Easy mistake. An hour later, I caught Madison watching me. Smile frozen. Eyes calculating. She approached. Can I speak to you a moment? We stepped into the hallway. She shut the door. Are you trying to start something? I answered a question honestly. These people are here to support me, she hissed. They don't need to hear about paperwork. Then maybe don't throw a cocktail party in the house you're trying to erase your husband from. Her cheeks flushed. If you don't want to be here, you're free to leave. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. She leaned in close. You think you're clever, Ellen. But you don't know how this works. I'll make sure you regret staying. Then she walked back out, smiling, greeting the next guest like we hadn't just whispered war threats in the hallway. I said nothing. Just watched. Just waited. Later, I saw a man in his 40s in a designer coat speak with Madison near the hall. He looked at me. Not with kindness, like he was trying to place me. He left early. Something in the way he moved stuck with me. At midnight, I passed her guest room. Saw her tote bag open. A folder inside, doc copies, backup plan. I took a photo. Didn't touch a thing. Inside, screenshots. File names. One was a will. Dated March 4th. Aaron died February 2nd. He didn't sign anything in March. And in the corner, metadata. Her name. Her computer. I stepped back, breath caught in my chest, and whispered to myself, she forged it. I didn't sleep. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was preparing. And what came next would change everything. I woke up before the sun. The house was quiet again, too quiet. But not the peaceful kind. The kind of quiet that hums with tension, like the air just before a storm breaks. When I stepped into the kitchen, Madison was already there. Wrapped in her robe. Staring out the window. Sniffling. Not crying. Not really. Just the kind of soft, carefully measured sounds that were loud enough to be overheard. She turned slowly when she heard my steps and wiped at her eyes with the edge of her palm. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice trembling. Sometimes it just hits me again. Then, without drama, without fanfare, just the right amount of subtlety, she placed a hand on her stomach. I froze. It wasn't a gesture. It was a statement, and I realized in one awful second she was changing the narrative. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, she said softly. But I'm pregnant, Ellen. 5 full seconds passed. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, because it didn't make sense. Aaron had been dead for 10 weeks. How far along? I asked. 8 weeks. Maybe 9. And just like that, everything snapped into place. Because the sonogram she handed me had a date printed in clean, black type. 4 weeks ago. Her name. The clinic. Clear as day. Aaron had already been gone 6 weeks when that image was taken. It wasn't his. And she knew I knew. I used a donor, she said quickly. Aaron and I talked about it, just in case. He wanted me to have a piece of him. I didn't react. Didn't give her the win of a reaction. Just handed the photo back with steady fingers. And she added, I hope you understand now why it's so important I have stability. For the baby. Stability. That was her word of the week. Her costume. The grieving widow, now an expecting mother, just trying to build a future while a bitter old woman made things difficult. I smiled. Soft. Controlled. And said, that changes things. She lit up, believing she'd won. But the second she left the room, I forwarded the photo to Mr. Holt with a message. Timeline doesn't add up. We need to talk. He called within the hour. This actually helps us, he said. If she's claiming dependency or emotional hardship, we can subpoena medical records. If she faked this, we can expose it as fraud. She's baiting me, I said. Trying to get a reaction. Then don't react, he replied. Just keep documenting. So I did. I folded towels. Cleaned the bathroom. Took out the trash. I played the game. Madison made little comments at breakfast. This baby's going to need so much space. I'm not sure it's healthy, raising a child in a tense environment. Each time, she looked at me sideways, trying to measure how close I was to snapping. But I just nodded and sipped my tea. Then Friday came. And with it the envelope. A manila folder slid under my door, marked urgent, 48 hours notice. Inside, a typed document. Cold. Pretend official. Stating I had 2 days to vacate the premises due to emotional instability and disruptive behavior. No court stamp. Just threats. The final line stopped my heart for half a beat. Failure to vacate may result in law enforcement involvement and potential elder neglect claims. There it was. Her real move. She was going to paint me as unstable. As dangerous. A bitter, elderly woman harassing a grieving, pregnant widow. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I just folded the notice and slid it into my case file. Then I drove straight to Mr. Holt's office. No call. No warning. This is no longer about cohabitation, I said. She's waging a smear campaign. He read the letter. Shook his head. She's accusing you of elder abuse? Yes. She's the one who locked your drawer, removed your belongings, intercepted your meds. I nodded. And this, I held up the fake eviction, is the first document with her fingerprints all over it. She's giving us everything, he said. Keep calm. Keep collecting. But now we begin escalation. He outlined the next steps. A motion to freeze any title transfers. A formal fraud alert filed with probate court. A protective notice placed on the house. And if she forged that sonogram or the will you found metadata for, he added, we'll have her on criminal grounds. I left his office with a strange silence in my chest. Not sadness. Not fear. Just focus. When I got home, Madison was in the kitchen, video calling someone. I stood just beyond her line of sight. She laughed into the call and said, yeah, I'll have access to the place within 2 weeks, tops. Access. She wasn't even staying. She was planning to sell. I stepped into the kitchen and made sure she saw me. Said nothing. Just opened the fridge. Grabbed a water bottle. Closed it. She ended the call. Do you need something? She asked. Just a heads up, I replied. If another envelope comes, make sure it's stamped by a judge. Anything else goes straight to my attorney. She blinked like I'd slapped her. Are you threatening me? You started the paperwork war, Madison, I said. I'm just keeping mine legal. That night I did one last thing. I opened Aaron's old laptop. The password still worked, his favorite song lyric and service number. Inside was a flagged folder labeled estate. And inside that was a PDF. Draft will February 2023. I opened it. Held my breath. The signature at the bottom wrong. The notary seal cropped. Reused. And listed as sole heir and property owner? Madison. No mention of me. The metadata? Her computer name. Her digital footprint. I printed it, scanned it, sent it to Mr. Holt. She forged his will. I didn't flinch when I hit send. The next morning, Mr. Holt called before I'd even finished my toast. We're filing today. Everything shifted. From quiet defense to full offense. He walked me through the filing. Fraud alert, court review, injunction. And then he said something that made my spine straighten. You don't have to serve her. The court will. That afternoon, Madison tried to make lunch. Offered to go shopping for baby supplies together. Asked, "Are we good?" I smiled. "We'll see." At 5 p.m., a process server arrived. She pulled into the driveway with shopping bags in hand. A man in a gray coat approached. "Madison K?" "Yes." He handed her the envelope. "You've been served. Probate fraud. Property injunction." She stared at it like it was radioactive. Opened it on the dining table. "Read it once. Then again." Then whispered, No, this is all lies." She turned to me. "What did you tell them?" I stood. I didn't tell them anything. The documents did. She threw the papers on the floor and stormed into the kitchen. "I'll fix this," she shouted. "This isn't happening." I said nothing, because she wasn't talking to me anymore. She was talking to the world that had finally told her no. That night she didn't eat, didn't speak, and the next morning I found her pacing the yard on the phone, hissing into the receiver. "Just get me a lawyer who knows how to bury this. I don't care what it costs. She's just an old woman." I stood on the porch, arms crossed, letting her know I heard every word. 2 days later, the court date was set. Preliminary hearing, will validity deed ownership. And when we walked into the courtroom, Madison wore a cream blazer and held that sonogram like a prop. But facts speak louder than fiction. Mr. Holt presented everything. Side-by-side signatures, metadata trails, refinance documents, the deed. The judge didn't even blink. "This is extremely clear," she said. "Ownership stands. Eviction claims void. Will, under fraud investigation." And I watched as Madison's posture crumbled. Her smile faltered. Her mouth twitched like it wanted to scream. But the show was over. As we left the courtroom, Mr. Holt said, "Now we wait to see if she pushes back or packs her bags." And I knew. The house was finally tilting back toward truth. The house felt different the next morning. Not quiet like before. Not hostile. Just still. Like something had finally exhaled after holding its breath for too long. When I walked into the kitchen, Madison was already there. Dressed in black. Hair pulled back too tight. A legal pad on the table in front of her, filled with names and phone numbers. She didn't look up. "You think you've won," she muttered. I poured myself a cup of coffee without answering. Let the silence stretch, taut and heavy. She looked up then, her eyes raw, sharp, resentful. "You think just because some judge believed your little story, it's over?" I turned slowly. "It wasn't a story, Madison. It was the law." That snapped something in her. She stood so fast the chair screeched across the tile. "You don't get to steal everything from me." And I stared her down, calm and grounded. "You tried to erase me from the life I helped build. You used lies, forged papers, and even pretended to be carrying Aaron's child. I didn't steal anything. I just stopped you from doing it." She froze, mouth open, words dead before they reached her tongue. I took a deep breath. "Pack your things. I'm giving you the respect you never gave me. I'm not calling the sheriff, yet." She looked stunned, angry, cornered, then stormed out of the room. And I sat down and finished my coffee in peace, for the first time in months. The hours passed in silence. No arguments. No games. Just stillness. Later, I opened Aaron's old room. It had been untouched since the funeral. The bookshelf still bare. The comforter smoothed out but cold. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered, "We're okay now, baby. I promise." Then I opened the top drawer. Inside, a folded sheet of paper. Handwritten. Aaron's handwriting. Dated 3 weeks before his death. "If anything happens to me, I need you to know I'm sorry." It wasn't a will. It was a confession. Line after line of guilt. About how Madison had been isolating him. How he didn't know how to tell me. How she made him feel like choosing his wife meant cutting off his mother. At the bottom, "Don't let her take everything. This house was always ours, not hers. Do what you have to do, Mom." My hands were shaking. But not from grief. From clarity. Aaron had seen her. Known her. And tried, quietly in his own way, to leave me the final word. I scanned the letter and locked it in the drawer beside the deed. That night, Madison came home with fire in her eyes and venom on her lips. "You'll regret this," she spat. "I'll go to the press. Tell them you bullied a grieving widow." I didn't flinch. I'll show them the ultrasound metadata, the fake will, and the letter Erin wrote. Her face went pale. She hadn't known about the letter. You're bluffing, she said. Try me. She turned and slammed her door so hard a frame fell off the wall in the hallway. I picked it up, straightened it, and made dinner like it was any other night. While the pasta boiled, I texted Holt. Found a personal letter. Strengthens motive. Will forward. He replied seconds later. Send. That's bulletproof. And that night, for the first time since the funeral, I slept with the window open. No wedge against the door. No phone in my hand. Just sleep. Real, clean sleep. By Sunday, the hallway was filled with boxes. Labeled. Unlabeled. Some with tape barely holding shut, like she'd packed in a rush. She came into the kitchen, avoided eye contact, and opened a drawer like she was searching for something that had never been there to begin with. Then finally, I'll be out by Friday. I nodded. No smile. No victory dance. Just a calm final nod. You can have your house back, she added bitterly. It was never yours to give, I replied. That hit her harder than yelling ever would have. She turned away. Didn't speak again. Later, 2 of her friends came by to help carry boxes. I stayed in my room while they whispered things like, "She's insane. How did you even live with her?" I didn't answer. Those questions weren't worth my breath. The next morning, she made one last pathetic attempt. Called Kyle, Erin's old friend. Left a voicemail saying I had faked everything, that Erin had never wanted me in the house, and that I was using elder abuse tactics to steal his legacy. What she didn't know, Kyle had already spoken to me, had already seen the court documents, had read the letter. He forwarded her voicemail to me with one line. She's desperate. I didn't reply, because the war was already over, and by Thursday her car was full. She stood at the doorway, last bag in hand, and said, "You don't have to do this." I looked her in the eye. "Neither did you." She hesitated, expecting me to scream, to cry, to beg. But I just opened the door and said, "You have until midnight." Her voice cracked. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Anywhere that isn't here." And I shut the door. Not to be cruel. To be done. She stood on the porch for a full minute. Didn't look back. Just got in the car, slammed the trunk, and drove off. And I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just stood in the living room and breathed like it was the first breath in months. But the story wasn't quite over. Because on the coffee table sat a silver flash drive. Unlabeled. Madison never forgot anything by accident. I stared at it for a long time, then plugged it into Erin's laptop. One file. Open me. A video. Madison, sitting in Erin's office chair, smiling into the webcam like she was still playing chess. "If you're watching this," she began, "then I'm either gone or you think you've won." Her voice was calm, measured, cruel. "You were never supposed to stay here forever, Ellen. You were a placeholder. A guest." She leaned closer. "Erin wanted to ask you to leave. He just didn't have the guts." I paused the video, took a breath, then hit play again. "I told him we could build something if we had space. But he was weak. So I had to do it for him." She ended the recording with, "You can keep the house. But you'll never forget this." The screen went black. And I sat there in the silence she tried to poison one last time. But what she didn't know was that I didn't need to forget. Because I already had what mattered. The letter. In Erin's own hand. His real words. His real love. I printed it again. Set it beside the frozen video frame of her smug face. And felt peace. Then I deleted the file. Tossed the drive into the trash. Because reminders weren't necessary. The war was done. The house was mine. And I wasn't living in fear anymore. That evening, I unpacked the last of my boxes, the ones she'd labeled remove. I put Erin's photo back on the entryway shelf. Lit a candle in the kitchen. And sat at the table alone. Not lonely. Just still. Just free. And as I sipped my tea and watched the quiet porch she once tried to claim, I whispered, "My house. My rules." Then smiled. Because for the first time since the funeral, I could finally breathe.